Notable failure or mistake you made, and what did it teach you? I think for this one, I guess an example I might want to give is I actually tried to launch a business right before, a few years before Born Primitive. And it was a product actually we developed in college. And it was actually a quick version. It was basically a giant koozie for kegs. I took a class in college, and you're supposed to like invent something. And the teacher teaches you how to like launch it in a marketing plan and get a patent and all these things. And at the end of the semester at Yale, this guy pulled us aside and was like, hey, this is actually something you guys should try to run with when you graduate. And we were seniors. So when we graduated, we started doing the research, and we got a design patent on it, and we raised $110,000 in capital and put together a business plan. And I had to find a warehouse to lease and a $60,000 printer to lease, and raw materials and how we're going to make this thing. And we did all of that. And I ended up going and pitching Miller Coors in Chicago and presenting this to not their board, but their point of sale division with like some of their brass that were there. And they loved the pitch. And we were high-fiving. We thought, okay, we've made it, because we wanted to do the business-to-business play right off the bat. We didn't see this as like a direct-to-consumer type business, because we wanted all these beer distributors to get the product because it could insulate the keg, but it also would brand it because it looked like a giant beer can. So if it was like Miller Lite, it looked like a giant Miller Lite can wrapped around a keg. So it was really good for their special events and things like that. So we took a swing at this, and everything went well. And Miller Coors was basically like, all right, how quickly do you think you could get us like 4,000 units? We want to get 2,000 of Miller Lite, 2,000 of Coors Light, I think was the ask. And they said, we said, we can order the raw materials like tomorrow. Let's go. So being naive and dumb in 23, I submitted an order for the raw materials like the very next day or within a couple days for, tens of thousands of dollars without getting a purchase order, because again, I was naive. I had never done this. And sure enough, a couple months go by, it's still in the works. The director of the point of sale division, Pete, I won't mention his last name, but it's still burned into my brain, was laid off, and a new director came in and put all stop on all programs that were currently ongoing. So his number two had to call me with his tail between his legs and say, hey, I know you guys are basically about to make 4,000 units of these, but everything's on hold and I can't give you any guarantees. So that fell through. We tried to shift to Anheuser-Busch, couldn't get a meeting with them. And now we have a 5-year lease on a building, a 5-year lease on a printer that's very expensive. And I have a 54-foot container of foam showing up to our warehouse that I have nothing to do with. So we tried to pivot and sell to the direct to the consumer. The demand just wasn't there. No one's paying $60 or $70 for, a thing you wrap your keg with. Although it was cool and funny, like it just, there's not that many people using kegs regularly to warrant, spending $70 or $80. And kind of got punched right in the nose at my first real bout at entrepreneurship. And a lot of lessons learned from that. And I think the biggest takeaway was that we weren't deterred, by failure. And I immediately pivoted, and that's when Born Primitive was born. And Mallory probably thought I was a total maniac, considering we had just like completely failed. But the lessons that I learned, although we were out the 110, or the investors were, the lessons I learned as a 23-year-old young buck in business, I was immediately able to apply to, Born Primitive. And the best lessons learned are the ones learned the hard way. That's why, if you're ever getting advice or mentorship from someone who's 20, 30 years older than you, and especially if it's business mentorship, listen to them, because the reason they probably know these things is because they did it wrong at one point and they learned the hard way. And we were able to take a lot of those lessons and immediately apply it. And I think that, put us on a good path. Now, we still made a million mistakes in the early days of Born Primitive, because it's a totally different business, but there were key themes that we were allowed to, able to kind of pull out of the mistakes of the first time and avoid a few of those landmines. So, I think moral of the story is, don't be afraid to fail. We get a lot of people, a lot of people will hit me up about advice on being an entrepreneur and, hey, I have this idea. What should I do? And, I think it depends on where you are in your life. I think if you're a little older and you got a family and it's going to take some financial risk, I probably would urge people to be a bit more cautious. But in instances where people are a little bit younger and there's less people relying on you, if you're not a father yet or a mother, or, I think if you're married, you can still pull that off, because it's just, at that point, if it's just two of you and there's no kids yet, that's the time to take chances and swing for the fence. Because even if you don't get it right the first time, you're gonna find something that to succeed with, particularly because every time you lose, you're gonna have major takeaways that's gonna make you more polished and even better for the second go at it, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. And for those that are that heard the Gary Vee episode, I think he had a great analogy. It's like in baseball, if you bat 3 out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame. So with entrepreneurship, I think there's a similar theme there, that you're not always going to hit a home run, and you're going to make a ton of mistakes, and some of your ideas might be flops. But if you're relentless and you're not deterred by failure, I think there's a lot of potential for success there, albeit it'll come with a lot of stress and a lot of headaches.